I would like to present our speaker today, Warren Lockhart. He's the senior developer advocate at Be Free, has been a technologist for 7 years and helping developers reach their goals for 5. As a midlife career changer, he appreciates the struggles other adults seeking to transition to tech experience and speaks to those struggles in his content creation on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. He is a saved family man who's truly humbled by where his journey has brought him. It's an honor to have you with us today, Warren. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and big thank you to you and to all the leaders of this awesome group, Frontend Queens, for the invitation. I love coming and speaking to those who have decided that tech might make sense for them, for their future, for their career, for freelance, or just for fun. And so, really happy to be here. And shout out to the AI re-imaging my face because I don't know who that guy is. It probably looks similar on video, but that is not me. Someone AI'd me. Nevertheless, let's get started. And feel free to go to full screen because I will not be sharing any slides today. I am the slide. And feel free also for all those who are present. Thanks for popping in. I know there's a recording available later, so thank you so much for coming in live to interact with me. You might want to pull out a pen and paper or pencil and paper or a digital notebook app because there might be a note or two that you can take. So today we're talking about this idea of daily deposits, right? And I'm not going to beat that analogy into the ground. You understand what a deposit is and the idea of compound interest. But I do want to share with you just a tool or two that might help you in your journey. And to begin with, I want to take you back and tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a few stories today. And this one is of a young man who, after serving in the military and then working in warehouses for many years, decided he wanted to go to college and he wanted to get a degree and do better by his family. A decision many of you may have made. Hey, I'm doing this. I want to do better. I want more money. I want that professional life. And so he went to college, but he really didn't have a strong high school background. He didn't know much about college. So he made the most logical first step, which is going and talking to the career counselors and talking to those advisors in college that they set you up with. And this story is far back enough that he actually sat down with this advisor and said, hey, I'm brand new. I've been out of high school for a long time. I'm coming back to college. I want to talk about majors because I understand you have to major in something. Can we talk about majors? And this will probably date my story a little bit, but they sat down and pulled out what's called a course catalog. I don't know what the ages are of everyone here. Don't reveal them. But he pulled out a course catalog, which is a physical book that contained all the majors and all the classes offered by that university, San Francisco State. And one by one, the advisor and this young man began going through all the majors from A to the back, right? A, accounting, B, botany, C, chemistry, et cetera, et cetera. Interestingly, at a certain point, a funny thing happened. The advisor took the book. I'm going to grab this book that I'm reading right now, Passionate Programmer, grabbed a section of pages and just turned them like that and said to the student, you wouldn't be interested in that. We'll go on to the next one. And something rang in that student's mind like, this doesn't quite sound right. Hold on, time out. What was that? And the advisor said, oh, that's the engineering majors. That's the engineering disciplines. You wouldn't be interested in that. Plus, I've looked at your transcript already, and you don't have the proper mathematics requirements and background to succeed in engineering. So we'll go on to the next one. And something about the cadence and the tone and the way that that advisor expressed that, something in the mind of that young African American man who just wanted to do a little bit better by his family said, this person is turning me away from something that I probably need to look at further. And so he spoke up and he said, no, that's exactly what I want to major in. Let's look at engineering. And there was a little back and forth there. And then they settled, all right, oh, it's going to be engineering. And it ended up becoming mechanical engineering. Now, in truth, again, the young man did not have a great mathematics background. So he was literally learning advanced mathematics, beginning with college algebra, then calculus 1 and calculus 2 and statistics, learning them on the fly when many of his peers were already equipped with these courses coming out of high school. And he's a family man. And he's a grown adult working full time. Many of you are in a similar situation. You want to do better, and there's like no time because you have to work to pay bills now, and family has needs, and all of these things. And he's engaging in a rigorous program, much like you are. So the odds were really, really stacked against him. And what I want to say before I give you the punchline is in this life, you're going to understand that no one owes you anything, but you owe yourself everything. And so, despite all those odds, despite being literally discouraged by his first interaction with a college advisor, he did go on to major in mechanical engineering. He succeeded in that major. He graduated, ended up moving back down south because again, that college was in San Francisco. Got employed by the Mississippi Department of Transportation, or MDOT as we call it down here, and subsequently got his professional licensure as an engineer. But that was very special because at that point he had made living Black history. He was the first African American to be a licensed engineer employed by the Mississippi Department of Transportation, MDOT. They might be wanting to clap and say, "Good job, Lawrence," but it wasn't me. It was actually my dad, Lawrence Lockhart Sr. And what I want you to extract from that is this idea that, we talk a lot about balance, work-life balance, right? How do you balance those? We talk about hard skills versus soft skills balance. We talk about depth of skills versus width of skills balance and the whole T-shaped model. But I want to give you a new one. I want to give you one to consider, right? This will be part of your homework. I got some homework for you today. Sorry, teachers, but I got a little homework for the students. I want you to begin considering self-advocacy versus protection. Self-advocacy versus risk aversion. See, when a parent gives a child advice, let's say a young child, typically that advice is for risk aversion, right? I don't want you to burn your finger. Don't put your hand on the stove, right? Small and simple things like that. I don't want you coming home with a cold. Dress warmly. It's cold outside. Risk aversion. Or, hey, I've already gone down this path. It was not successful. Don't do what I did. And they give those types of advice with good intention. And many times you'll come across people in the tech world, might be your teachers, your advisors, some random guru on, or so-called guru on TikTok or Twitter. And they give advice, but many times it's set up from the framework of risk aversion, trying to avoid some risk to you. And the problem with that is sometimes it ends up providing unnecessary guardrails that keep you from the very thing you need to be getting into. And so that's why I mentioned it as being a balance. I want you to begin thinking about risk aversion versus self advocacy as a balance. Because if we look at the top leaders in technology across not just software, but across technology, period, those who are highly skilled in HVAC technology, which is one of the subsets of mechanical engineering, aerospace technology, or any technology, very often you'll find those leaders typically march to the beat of their own drummer. They may honestly avoid some of that risk averse advice because they've got it in their mind what they want to do, how they want it to turn out, and what they're willing to put into it to accomplish that. And that's really good because you're going to come across a lot of advice in your careers. And I want you to listen to it, but put it in the framework of, is this only trying to help me be, risk averse and avoid problems? Or is this actually speaking to some of my own talents, some of my own abilities, and some of my own strengths? That is my homework for you today. For the next story, we're going to tell another story. And that is the story of Willy Wonka. I've pulled it up here for myself to read, so y'all give me just a second because I want to read it in its entirety. It's just a little. Matter of fact, you know what? I actually wrote this as a blog post. I'm going to read this to you in its entirety. It'll go over very well. And it goes as far as from the book. Greetings to you, lucky finder of this golden ticket. I shake you warmly by the hand. Tremendous things are in store for you. You will be escorted by home by a procession of large trucks loaded with enough delicious edibles to last you and your entire household for many years. If at any time you should run out of supplies, you have to only come back to the factory and show this golden ticket. I will be happy to refill your cupboard with whatever you want. My friends, I'm here to tell you, whether you know it or not, there's no golden tickets in tech. Okay? There's no certification, there's no boot camp, there's no set of skills, there's no single thing that is a golden ticket, much like in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory in tech, which is very important because you may come across people that think, hey, if I just get this cert, that's a wrap. I'm six figures. Or if I go to this college, listen, I know someone very well who is a college graduate, computer science at MIT, has deep experience, tons of knowledge, and has struggled this year and been very public about her struggle acquiring not her first job, but her next job in tech. That's not to discourage you, but to encourage you to understand that there's really a level playing field these days. There's truly a level playing field, and there is no single golden ticket. So, with that being said, as I scroll through here, tech sometimes can be almost more like a battlefield, right? Why do you think they call this boot camp, right? There's barriers out there, there's blockers out there, but they don't have to define you. You have the opportunity, you have the chance to define yourself. And you define yourself through those daily actions, many of which we're going to talk about in just a minute, and through your personal pursuit of excellence. I had one more note on that. Yes, that ties in very closely to a chapter in this book, which I'm going to refer to a few times. And I really would like you guys to read it, you all to read it, excuse me. And that is The Passionate Programmer. Passionate Programmer is one of those classic works. It's by a man by the name of Chad Fowler. And one of the chapters is called Practice, Practice, Practice. Being a jazz musician, he tied advancing your programming skills and abilities to becoming a better jazz musician. And he broke it down into three steps that hopefully you can relate to. Number one, you need physical coordination. Number two, sight reading. And number three, improvisation. The physical coordination, that comes into exploring the depths of your language. Are you going to be more of a Java person, maybe perhaps, maybe a database oriented person, JavaScript, TypeScript, React, Angular, whatever is your chosen language or stack, go to some of the edges of that in some of your projects, right? Push the boundary some. Don't just stay with the standard syntax, and that's all you ever do. I'm not saying change the syntax, but look at some of the new features that are coming out. All of these languages, libraries, and frameworks have new features all the time. Keep up with that. Maybe just follow them on Twitter or on GitHub and find out what the new features are and just implement it. It doesn't have to be a major project that's going to be part of your portfolio, but for the learning purposes, get in those physical reps. The second one was sight reading, right? In music, we have this thing called sight reading, meaning if you can read music, you should be able to read a fairly complex sheet of music from the first time you see it. That's called sight reading. What does that equate to in the programming world? I encourage you to get involved in open source. Let me tell you, it's easy to say, I know TypeScript or I know Java. And the first time you go to a Java program that you've never written, it's a completely different experience. You will say, whoa, I didn't know what I thought I knew because maybe they are programming with a different paradigm or using some design patterns you haven't seen. It is a great learning experience, a great way to level yourself up using open source. Now, I will tell you up front, not all open source repositories are made the same. Not all maintainers are made the same. Many of them don't really have time to work with people. And so you have to be kind of picky and choosy about which ones you go for. But there are ample open source opportunities to help you level up. And the last one was improvisation. When it comes to improvisation in jazz, they improv all the time. There's a core melody, and then there's variations on a theme. You can improvise, right? The next homework you get, give yourself a challenge, right? I'm going to do this. It didn't ask for testing, but I'm going to add a unit test because I know that's important. I've read about that. I've seen it in job descriptions, right? Or I'm going to do this. It said, back end only. I'm going to just, hey, I'm going to vibe code, right? Because AI is such a thing. And I'm going to vibe code a front end to attach to it to make sure I'm getting to integrate front end back together and understand how they tie and how those API calls work. I'm going to challenge myself. That's the improvisation. If you ever have like a chapter traditionally in a book, you remember there's always those regular questions, and at the end there's like the bonus questions. Improv is the bonus questions. I'm encouraging you right now to go for those bonus questions. Practice, practice, practice. There are no golden tickets in tech. For my next point, another story. I'm just full of stories. Old guy. I'm going to take you to, and this is the one I want to read. This is actually the blog post because I was putting my notes together. I was like, that actually sounds good. So if y'all give me just 2 seconds, this is actually the blog post I was thinking of. I need to make the font a little bigger and we're going to be good to go. There we go. So I was reminded of a particular phrase by a young man. It was late in the spring of 2024, Mountain View, California, Google I/O, my first time at that conference. And on one particular evening, many of us gathered and played spades down in the hotel lobby. And the next day, that afternoon, Me and a friend took a leisurely trip in our rental car up to San Francisco to get our street photography on and capture some footage of the Gate Bridge. Now, during our drive there, we conversed, and the other young man, whose name is Chris Cohn, reflected on the prior evening's events. Because despite the fact that he was a top-notch spades player, on that night he lost, and lost badly. The truth is, he did the gracious thing. He actually took on a brand new person, a noob, if you will, as his partner, while me and my partner were both experienced players. And he taught the noob, the new person, on the fly and said, "All right, now we're going to play." And you can imagine how that went. We beat them senselessly. There was no mercy. We had no mercy. It's spades. Come on. We had zero mercy. And so we're joking about it on the car ride afterwards. And I'm like, man, what were you thinking? Like, you couldn't, there's no way you guys were going to win. Like, and he said, Lawrence, I'll tell you this. Sometimes you just have to play the hand you're dealt. I said, oh, that's bars. That's bars. I said, Chris, I'm going to use that in a talk one day. Here we are. I'm using it in a talk. Because, see, we know we're all from different backgrounds, different levels of privilege, of access, of education. You have people over here who had 3 internships in college, and someone else over here who wants the same job and never stepped foot on a college campus. Some of you had to hustle, to scrape, to claw, beg, borrow, do everything but steal just to get where you are today. I know that's the case for me. And as the OG in the room, please tell me, trust me when I tell you, I know some of our starting points really can seem really insignificant at times, right? Some of our starting points were unquestionably inequitable. Some of us had no resources, right? And you're all making it on your own, by your own might and your own time and your own money. And the good news is how you start does not have to determine how you finish, right? If you're willing to play the hand you're dealt, how you start does not have to determine how you finish. Or in other words, your past does not have to equal your future. If it helps, take a page from my book. 2006, middle-aged black guy in the deep South working in the restaurant business gets this bright idea he wants to work in tech as a programmer of all things. He wanted to be a programmer and he's flipping burgers. Fast forward 2.25 years later, he lands his first job in tech. How did that happen? We don't have time to go into all of it, but let me just encourage you to understand I played the hand I was dealt. Because even though I had a fantastic example in my parents, I unfortunately had ignored that example to my own peril for many years. I'm being really transparent right now. And so I had to play the hand I was dealt. I understood at that point that community was a really big deal. You need community. I looked around my community and tried to find a meetup. There was one meetup in town in Oxford, Mississippi, and I opened it up. I think it was an Eventbrite, and it said for college students and employees of the university only. I, at that time, was not an employee of the university, nor was I a student. Strike. So I kept looking. From Oxford, Mississippi, I kept looking like for a radius of where can I find a tech meetup? I need community. They're telling me of the importance of community. And the closest one I could find was in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, if you're not from down here, you might not know the proximity, but I'll be happy to tell you that is a 3.5 hour drive one way. And I drove 3.5 hours on a early Saturday morning from Oxford, Mississippi to Little Rock, Arkansas to attend a 2 hour seminar because I had to play the hand I was dealt. That's not anything anyone would advise me, right? Going back to the earlier thing about risk averse versus self advocacy. I was advocating for myself. I need to connect with people. I need to see some more tech people. I need to ask questions of live folks. And I did that. 3.5 hours one way, 2 hour seminar, 3.5 hour drive back. Fortunately, after that, I continued to look for meetup groups and I found one closer in Memphis, Tennessee, where I live now. But it was only an hour and a half drive. And once a month, I joined a group called Code Connector. Code Connector took me in, and I wasn't young, but I was young in terms of my tech career because I hadn't started it yet. I just had a little rinky-dink resume, a little rinky-dink portfolio, and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to get into tech. Who can help me? And I would listen to the speakers, and I would ask questions of people, and I would volunteer, right? I'll help move the chairs at the end, or I can go pick up the pizza. I just kept playing the hand I was dealt because I understood community is important. I kept reading about community is so important, particularly if you don't have like this deep network from college, like you went to a top-notch university and these professors and these advisors and all your peers are doing well. I don't have any of that. So I had to build my community from scratch, from the ground up. And I just volunteered at this place, driving in the evening an hour and a half to Memphis and volunteering over and over again. And the next thing you know, one of the jobs that was listing on the Slack of that group became the first job I got in tech. The next thing you know, I was made one of the volunteer leaders for that organization. So I've now gone from the burger guy to a guy in tech who's actually helped leading a nonprofit. Kept working and learned that we're rolled into an umbrella of a larger organization, the Memphis Technology Foundation, who a few members of which had an eye on what I've been doing, just volunteering and showing up, and invited me to come sit on the board for the Memphis Technology Foundation as I do today. I don't share with that to impress you. I share with that to impress upon you that regardless of where you're coming from, I don't want you to look at that as a negative from this day on. I want you to make it firm in your mind. I'm going to play the hand that I've been dealt because I know you can make it. All right. We are moving really, really fast. I think we have an hour total. We're about 26 minutes in. I do have a couple more stories if y'all okay with that. I haven't looked at the chat at all. So let me just move this out of the way. All kinds of great responses. Thank you for that. Glad for so many who have shown up. Awesome, awesome, awesome. More stories. All right. Next story. Take it to my childhood. Take it way back. In my childhood, we had four channels: ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS. This is prior to the internet, prior to cable. Four channels. I remember when we got our fifth channel. This is all available through, network TV, antennas, table, TV antennas, right? And it was channel 40 WDBD. That was like our version of cable at the time. And they showed all these weird, wacky TV shows, but I fell in love with a particular segment that came on every Saturday at noon, which means if I got up, had my cereal, did my couple of chores, I could be in front of the TV at 12 o'clock reliably every Saturday. And that was Kung Fu Theater. Oh my gosh. I could tear up thinking about Kung Fu Theater. I loved Kung Fu Theater. I had never seen martial arts movies before, had no connection with anything doing with Asian culture or cinema. Those movies, I was enthralled. In black and white with horrible voiceovers, I was enthralled. And one of the favorite type of scenes I would like weren't just the pure fighting scenes, which were always good. But I loved the training scenes. I loved them. I loved it like it would be like some neophyte or some outcast, somebody who doesn't even belong. But somehow they would get into the school and they would not do well at first, and then have an epiphany, and then they would begin to rise. And then you would see them like they're punching the tree, and like eventually, like at first punches it hurts. Then after a bunch of subsequent punches, they're like making a dent in the tree. You know what I mean? There's always the scene where they're holding the water buckets. I think they even did that in Milan, right? The live action Milan, they're holding the water buckets and they're climbing something. I would love those scenes. I literally fell in love with that because it's all about this story that regardless of where you start, you can ascend depending on how you live your life and how you present yourself to the world. And it reminds me of a chapter in this book. Once again, he should pay me. But this right here, Passionate Programmer, there's a chapter called Remarkability. And that chapter refers to another book called The Purple Cow by Seth Godin, who is a marketing genius. He's written a lot on marketing. Seth Godin or Godin, Godin. Not going to summarize that book for you, but you can imagine if there's a herd of cows, hundreds and hundreds of cows, how easy it is to spot the purple cow. Incredibly easy to spot the purple cow. What the heck does that have to do with being a front end developer or a software developer? Many of you may have heard this idea that, oh, front end development is saturated. Oh, web development is too crowded. It's flooded with people. It's oversaturated. And what I want to tell you is in a flood or a saturated field of cows, the purple cow will absolutely get seen, will absolutely get talked about, will absolutely get pointed out because it is remarkable. Give me just 1 second here. Need to adjust something. Sorry about that. This is a quick 30-second timeout. All right, we should be all good now. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Cold is getting the best of me. So that purple cow will be seen because it's remarkable. I'm encouraging you to be a purple cow in a good way. Be a purple cow. Go beyond just wanting to learn languages and libraries and frameworks and syntax, right? Which is the basics. You have to start there, right? And eventually you'll make projects, you'll make portfolios, you'll fix up your resume, you'll do those lists. Somewhere in that, please get it in your mind, I'm going for being remarkable. My goal is to be remarkable. Even as a junior, even as a brand new techie, you want to be remarkable in some way. The remarkable ones are the ones that get picked out of the crowd. Because see, if we assume that front end development is quote unquote oversaturated, I don't think it is, but if we assume that it is, if you open up LinkedIn right now and just put that in as a job search, there's tons of jobs. Somebody's getting those jobs. It's the remarkable ones. It's the ones that don't look like the rest of the crowd necessarily. Okay? So here's the homework. This is on remarkability. Here's your homework. It's two things. The first one comes from mentorship. So I do a lot of mentoring, one-on-one mentoring on this website called TopMate. And one of the exercises I typically do, particularly if it's like a person who, let's say it was like one of you, right? Let's say they just graduated from a boot camp. It's been 6 months and they're having no success, right? Maybe no callbacks, or the callbacks are not getting past the first interview. Like it's just not working well. They're getting discouraged, or 9 months or a year. I've had over a year before. And they're trying to find out, what am I doing wrong? Is it my resume? Is my LinkedIn? Is my project not good enough? I said, well, before we get into all of that, tell me one thing. I'm going to ask you this too. Don't put it in the chat, but I want you to think about it. This is your homework. What's your special? What makes you special? What's your thing? See, if I just say the word Popeyes, you know fried chicken. If I say Burger King, whether you like it or hate it, you know what they do burgers, right? If I say Home Depot, you know what they do. You know what they're good at, what they're known for. You know they're special. What's your special? Even coming out of a boot camp as a junior, as a beginner, you need to have something that makes you special. So if the person has 100 applications for the job, something about you stands out just a little bit. You can decide what that's going to be now. I'm not sure where you are in your program. If you just started, graduated midway, I'm not sure where you are. But at any point, even afterwards, you can decide what that is. And the great thing is, even if you don't have a special now, you can talk to people, look at job descriptions, go to communities and get an idea of what special could look like for you and just make a plan. I don't really have anything that sets me apart, but I'm going to make a 90-day plan to learn this skill and redo my project in this way and maybe pick up one freelance opportunity. So from that point on, I have a special. I'm different than the rest of the crowd. Someone is getting hired for the positions, whether it's 2 applicants or 2,000. Someone's getting hired. It is the remarkable one. All right. So find how you can make yourself special. That's number one. And then number two is to make that small iteration on your projects, right? So you're given an assignment. I kind of touched on this earlier, but I'm going to steal from that idea. You're given an assignment, do this project, and you do it. Think, what can I add that would make this more like what we do in the enterprise, what we do in companies? We didn't have to do any testing for this. I know they do testing all the time. Let me just add some unit tests. Or we were assigned unit tests, but I heard there's also integration tests. Let me do some integration tests with this, right? I don't really know cyber, but I do know how to protect my forms. Let me show that I know something about protecting our websites from malicious attacks, site injection, things like that. You might need to do a little bit of extra reading. But if that little bit of extra reading and the few extra minutes of coding set you apart, that could literally be the difference in getting a call and not getting a call, which is a huge, huge motivator or demotivator to your career and process. Once you finish doing all this stuff, all these people have told you, does anybody even want to hire you? Does anybody even want to pay you any attention? Pay you money to work on their code? Does anyone trust you to work on their code? The way you get visible in a crowded field is by being remarkable, which is one more chapter. Last one, and then we're going to go to questions. I do think I see some questions. Thank you for the interactivity. Definitely appreciate that. The last one, I'm going to kind of refer to my notes a little heavier on because I'm going to rely on a few quotes. And the first quote comes from Henry Ford, who was the first to say, whether you think you can or you think you can't. You're right. You're right. Uh, why is that true? You probably all of you heard of that before, but why is that true? What is it about us that makes that true? The thing is, it's about congruency and alignment. See, no one you meet, nor any of you, nor I, want to feel like they're wrong. No one ever wants to feel like they're wrong. But your interpretation of being aligned with what's right and being wrong has had everything to do with your mental state. It has everything to do with what you believe to be true at the deepest level. See, people don't act always in their best interests, but they always act in congruence with their most foundational beliefs, the ones that are most strongly held. And sometimes those beliefs do not help them in the immediate, but it's something that they, for whatever reason, haven't been able to shake, or they haven't done the work to rid themselves of those fundamental, unhelpful thought processes. I'm not even going to say what any of them are because I don't want to implant that on anybody, but all of us have them in some degree or another. Hey, I'm trying to lose weight right now. I'll give myself as an example, right? Get off of tech for a minute. I want to lose weight. I should have less belly fat on my body. I also absolutely, positively love double chocolate cake when it has that nice fudgy icing. Good God Almighty. And if it's warm and you put it with a little scoop of vanilla bean ice cream, oh my God, it's over. It's over. You don't have to ask me, do I want any cake? I don't have to be motivated. You know, people, I can't get motivated to code. You don't have to motivate me to eat that chocolate cake, to eat that dessert. It's gone. Why? Because I have a fundamental love and understanding and belief, if you will, about cake that is stronger in the moment quite often than my belief system around losing belly fat. Weird example, but that happens in tech all the time with things people say that they want and what they really believe about themselves. See, Jeff Bezos even said every day should be like a day one for you. Every day should be like a day one, meaning even if you have a whole string of failures in your past, right? Today's Thursday, tomorrow is day one, right? You can start over as many times as you allow yourself to start over, where now failure only means you refuse to keep trying. That's the only failure. You refuse to keep trying. Everything else has just been giving you data. I don't care if you get 15 rejections in the next 3 weeks if you're applying. I don't know where you are, but if you're applying, that is data. That's not failure. As long as you're still trying, you haven't failed. You're just getting more and more data about what's not working so far. Either the industry, your resume, your LinkedIn, your elevator pitch, your tell me about yourself. Something in there is not working. How you present yourself, are you not special enough? There's more and more data that you're accumulating and hopefully learning from, right? There are some cases where you can get a select recruiter or two to give you feedback. Most of them will run from it for policy issues and legal issues, but you can get feedback in some cases. And in other cases, you can do mock interviews with one another or with your teachers, with your leaders here, and get information about what am I presenting? How am I coming across in an interview? Do I seem trustworthy? Do I seem like somebody who should be in tech? Yes or no? And if not, what do I need to do differently? Right? Am I moving my hands too much? Is it my shirt? Is it my background? Like, what am I doing? Talk to me because I want to get hired in this. I want to keep believing. As long as you keep trying, you haven't failed. All right. This is not positive thinking. And I want to be really, really careful about that. This is not ignore all the negative things because when I get into this kind of thing, it gets a little mental, and sometimes people tune out because it sounds too much like, positive thinking and ignoring the bad stuff. I'm not saying that. I don't even believe in that. Right? Easy test for those who are on the fence about positive thinking and stuff like that, right? I want you to go to where there's like an entire just rows and rows of roses. They're growing roses, right? Valentine's coming up, a few months, so they're growing them as soon as possible. So there's tons of roses. I want you to close your eyes, all right? And I want you to walk through there. Don't try to walk through the rows, just walk up and through them. And I want you to utter to yourself in the most mantra-like possible way, there are no thorns in the roses. There are no thorns in the roses. Just keep saying it. Matter of fact, make you a vision board and then visualize it and then say it out loud over and over again. There are no thorns in the roses. I assure you, when you come out the other side of that rose bed, you will have cuts and scratches all over yourself because you cannot ignore certain realities. And so my implementation of what I'm saying for you is not to ignore realities, but take data and make it and shape it in a way that empowers you and doesn't hurt you. It's not about ignoring data, but about building mental constructs where the data serves you. All right. And for me, as a person of faith, I'm not here to put my faith on anyone, but I'm just going to make a quick quote from the Bible. A guy that's named Paul is attributed in the book known as Romans 8:28 to make a phrase, all things work for good for those who love the Lord. All things work for good. And it took me the longest time to understand, like, how can all things work for good? Like, some things are just really, really bad. Like, they're just objectively bad. And it took me a lot of time and a lot of maturity to understand there is a way to mentally frame even the bad things in terms of mentality now, to frame it in a way that I can still be empowered by it. A little transparency moment. Talked about motivation with somebody a few weeks back, maybe a few months back. Motivation to code, motivation to keep trying, motivation to keep going hard. Oh no, no, I know what it was. They're like, how do you do so much stuff? That's what it was. This one was, how do you do so much stuff? Because they were just kind of tracking me from social media and things like this, what I do at my job, what I do in my local community and online communities, and on and on and on. How do you motivate to do all that stuff? And I opened up and I said, I don't want to be homeless again. There was a period after my divorce, my first marriage, when I couldn't function as a manager anymore. So I just went to being a waiter. And waiters don't make that much money. And I was working at one restaurant in the day, and I was in a borrowed car and driving downtown and working at a different restaurant at night. And I had been evicted from my apartment because I just didn't have money and I didn't have savings. I had nothing. And I refused to ask for help, which was dumb for my parents, that is. And so I would just drive behind a restaurant late, late, late at night when everyone was gone. I would kind of nudge my car behind the dumpster because you couldn't really see the car that much from the street. So I didn't feel like, a cop would come knocking on my door or something, but it was under a light. So if I needed to wake up and be aware of my surroundings, I could see what was going on. And unfortunately, it was winter. So I had like these two blankets in the car. And what I would do is I would drive around with the heat on blast and have the heat turned down to the floorboards. And I would stuff the blankets on the one side of the passenger side of the floorboards so they get as warm as possible. When I was getting really, 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 really hot, I would drive to that restaurant, which is the restaurant that I would work in the morning. I would park there because in case I overslept, I was already at work, right? And I would I'll take my shower at the gas station. I would drive down to the pilot, take my shower, and then come back until I'm ready to go. And I'll let my car get as hot as possible because it was winter, it was cold outside, and it's hard to go to sleep when it's cold. I don't know how many of you ever tried to go to sleep when you're cold or when you're hungry. It's hard. And I would drive, and when the car got really, really hot, and I felt like those blankets were really, really hot, I would wedge my car in just behind that dumpster, immediately turn the car off because I don't want to die from carbon monoxide poisoning. Turn off the car, take the blankets, cover myself, and immediately just try to go to sleep as fast as possible. And to this day, my wife always says, "You can go to sleep so fast." She has no idea the training I went through to go to sleep fast because it's cold. And you don't want to try to go to sleep when it's cold. So you make yourself as warm as you can, and just go to sleep. Like just allow your brain just to. And I was out in minutes. I did that for a little while. Why would I need more motivation than that to go hard in tech? To keep pushing, to keep giving back, to keep going hard at my job, to keep building, to keep learning. Why would I need more motivation than that? I don't ever want to see that again. Now, that's not your story, but you have your own story, right? You have your, I don't want to live like that again, or I want my kids to have better than the upgrade that I had, or I'm trying to break through this glass ceiling. I'm tired of Taco Bell and Burger King and working at Macy's is all I can do. I'm tired of my income limits. I'm tired of people who I know aren't smart as me seeming to do so, so well, and I'm stuck right here. You have your thing that you can build on. It is going to take the proper mindset to take the data of your past and construct it in a way that serves you. And so here we go. I'm going to conclude with this. 145, I'm going to conclude with this. Deal with your belief systems and how you get them to serve you. Again, looking at people who are greatly successful, you can typically find one of these three traits. They believe, number one, if anyone else did it, I can do it too. That's a great one. You'll find some that say, I always believe this is where I belong. Right? This might be you, might not be you. I'm just quoting these out. And the third one I already mentioned already. I don't want my kids to grow up the way I grew up. I want better for them. And I'm willing to go hard to make sure that's happened, to make sure that happens, excuse me. And so your homework for this is the following three. This is my true wrap up, I promise. Off this call, right, in the quiet of your home, apartment, wherever you are, I want you to write down three beliefs that deals with you in this tech life, right? I don't care if they're positive, negative, neutral, just write them down. I know you probably want to type it, but if you write it, something special happens with your hands, pen and paper, pencil and paper, write them down. Then I want you to read through them and see which one of these serve me, help propel me in the direction I'm trying to go, and which one of these is actually more of a hindrance. For the one that's a potential hindrance, I don't want you to question its validity, right? If it's a fact, it's a fact. The homeless thing I told you about, that was a fact. That happened. So I don't want you to ignore it or pretend like bad things don't happen. But I want you to figure out how can you frame that fact that gives you power in a way that it gives you power rather than taking power away from you. All right. I wish you well. Those are my daily deposits for you. Doing those things on a continual basis will be great daily deposits. I'm going to wrap up and I guess go to questions unless Maria or one of the others is going to come back. I'm going to just scroll through here.
Thank you,
And thank you all
Warren.
again for the interaction. I love interaction. That's been fantastic. All right, so I see one from Sophia. Number one, what's the biggest misconception people have about career growth in tech? Before you get in it, the biggest misconception, there's two. There's two. Number one, that your manager is going to help you with that promotion. That's a huge misconception. They are charged with developing you. That's how they get the most for the team. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen. The sole ownership of your career progression and promotion is in your hands, which is why every one-on-one, every 90-day meeting, every yearly meeting should be initiated truly by you. You should have the most to say. You should have the most notes. You should be taking notes continually about your progress, things that are going well, not going well. You should be looking for opportunities, raising your hand. If you need to cross teams, get some more experience in other areas. You are the sole, S-O-L-E, sole owner of your career growth and progression, right? Everyone else is there to assist. Right? They will not initiate. If they do initiate, fantastic, but they don't own that because again, your check is going in their account. So they don't own your check. Neither should they own your career progression. You own that. Take hold of it from the very first day. That's the first one. The second one, I haven't seen this a lot, but I did early in my tech career. I saw this rather often, particularly for people coming from jobs where you learn a certain set of skills and you're kind of done. Easy example. When I worked in the restaurant industry for 17 years before coming to tech. But in the middle of that, there was a 5-year stint where I worked in supply chain, right? Down at the Nissan plant, logistics, warehouses, stuff like that. For the most part, and assembly lines. For the most part, like on an assembly line, once you learn the skills for all the positions in that line, you're done. You could just do that for years. You're done. And so for a person like that to go from an assembly line type of work to tech is dramatic, a dramatic change because we are continually learning, learning, and learning and learning. I've been doing this almost 8 years now. I'm seven plus years into this game, tech game, right? Still learning, never stop learning. Right? From the book that I'm reading, Passionate Programmer, which I've shared pieces of with you today, to because the matrix thing is just to look cute, but that code right there, that's code of something that I'm working on. It's actually a Spring Boot microservice project that I'm working on now to implement some of the more later features from Java 25, which was recently released. There is continual learning. The biggest thing about ageism is not the pure number, but your willingness to be a quick adapter to change. I'm not saying everybody respects, the older guy or the older person in tech. I'm not saying that. But the most frequent thing that happens that looks like ageism is not just, oh, you hit a number, you're done. But what is your willingness and adaptability and eagerness to be the one to adapt to change? Are you the one that initiates change for an enterprise? That will keep you looking younger than somebody coming out of college. All right. Great question, Sophia. Thank you for that. One from Maria, and I believe we're going to stop in 10 minutes. So I'm going to try to speed up a little bit. Can you share a moment when your consistent effort suddenly paid off? Consistent effort suddenly paid off. So my career progression, the very first tech job that I had was called Web Content Updater. It was something weird. It wasn't a traditional title. By the way, whenever you all go to applying for jobs, don't only look for the title that you're interested in. Sometimes search for the technology. You might find jobs that you can do, but you never would have found them because they have some weird, obscure title. Like companies just come up with these weird titles sometimes. So sometimes search the skills instead of the job role. That's a pro hack. Give you that for free. But my first job was titled something like web content developer, web content updater. They weren't technically allowed to hire another developer, so they just made up a name, right? It was really weird. Did that for a year. Went to the boot camp, learned Java and SQL, a lot of stuff. And after the boot camp, or actually during the boot camp, that's when I got hired on with FedEx. Worked there for 4 years. That's where I really got my solid full stack chops. So that's 5 years in the game. That entire time, I have been helping others. Like what I'm doing with y'all right now, I've been helping others, right? Either in person, online, mentoring. I was actually, so this is before TikTok, aging myself. I was actually mentoring people through Instagram. You can go to my Instagram story right now. You can find some of it. If you go to Tech Tips, you'll find some old stuff. So I've been doing this for a long time, trying to help people find their wins, which I think is still the byline in my LinkedIn. I love helping developers find their wins. And sometimes we'll sit down and we'll go through code together or look at projects together and just try to help people out in different ways. And I'll make videos about it. And I started writing a blog. I think it's called Just Code already. No, Musings of Lawrence Decodes, something, whatever. I started a blog. So I started writing, started making videos. I'm doing all this content. And I started going to conferences. And I learned you can actually get paid for this. To actually help another developer, help them find their wins, help them be successful with tools. That's kind of part of the role of developer advocacy. And so I started applying, but nothing was really happening. And I'm applying and nothing's really happening. Again, I'm experienced now. I'm 4 years in plus. I'm giving other people advice, but the DevRel thing was not happening. And then I started going to conferences. And I spoke at Render ATL conference in Atlanta. And I spoke at Microsoft Build. Shout out to Scott Hanselman, got me up to Seattle. Spoke at Microsoft Build. And then I interacted with a ton of influential people at the last Pluralsight conference, which was down in New Orleans. We had a great time. And all of a sudden, all that community work, all those touch points had people reaching out to me because I was talking about it on LinkedIn and stuff like that. And the next DevRel job I applied for, which was developer advocate at Vaadin, Vaadin, I nailed it. I nailed it. Like it was no question. And then they went through a period of layoffs in January of this year. I set a deadline. I want to be rehired in 90 days, which is pretty freaking aggressive. I started at where I am right now, 89 days later. So yes, putting in the work. That was a version of working in public, which we could do a whole talk about that, but that definitely paid off. I think we got 6 minutes left. I think we'll try to do one or two more. Many juniors fear AI reduces their chances of being hired. From your experience, what truly matters more than AI when breaking into tech? Mentorship link. Mentorship link. Just go to TopMate and search for my name if you want to do that. It's on Fridays. It's very, very limited, very limited. But thank you for asking. I don't want to. I'm not even on the right computer for that. It's on that one. But go to TopMate, search for Lawrence Lockhart or Lawrence Decodes. You'll find me. But the AI fear and what matters more than AI when breaking into tech. Let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that and reframe. Yeah, let me rephrase how we think about that because I don't want the students to think about what do I need to do that's more than AI, the way that's asked, because that's not what companies are doing. See, it's all the same way that I said I was doing all the content stuff that I found you could get paid for it. The same thing works with any skill. that you want to get hired for. If you want to get hired for something, just do it already. So companies are not trying to do anything more than AI. Companies are figuring out how to most effectively use AI to make money. And so there's even job descriptions now, I've seen them, that say that the candidate must have their own personal AI workflow, which means as opposed to trying to think, what can I do more than I would advocate, and I have advocated, you absolutely should be figuring out how to integrate and what are the best practices to integrating AI into your code, into your current product building workflow. You probably haven't heard that phrase before. I'm saying that a particular way for a reason. Every student, at the appropriate time, now not when you're learning what a for loop is, okay, but at the appropriate time, when you're starting to put out some actual production grade software, so to speak, you should be figuring out how do you want to integrate artificial intelligence to enhance your personal workflow because that's going to happen on the job most likely, right? We're all doing different versions of, typically it's not vibe coding, but more spec-driven development. There's an article by, is it GitHub or Microsoft in particular? Look up spec-driven, SPEC, spec-driven development. Most enterprises are doing some version of spec-driven development. One of the things that'll help with that is if you have your own personal AI workflow and you can speak to it in an interview, which means when they ask, how did you make this? You can say, yes, well, I started with spec-driven development to build out this part and that part because those are long, tedious, but simple. But I had special ways that I wanted to tie this API to this messaging queue, or I had special ways that I wanted to do this with my database, or I had a special way that I wanted to pull them off. And so I took over the reins at that point, and I began coding the rest of it based on these following architectural decisions, all of which I spoke about in my README. You talk like that in a junior interview, you're making the final list. I'm not gonna say you're gonna get hired because I don't know that. You're in the final list. You're in the final list. So I would not look to compete with AI. Going back to the question, I would look how to make it your friend and integrate it into your workflow at the appropriate time. You have to have the fundamentals. People who are trying to get in on just vibes and things like that, that is not a path to a sustainable career. The fundamentals will not go anywhere. All right. Just understand when I got in, knowing React was enough. Couple of front end projects, maybe one full stack, something with an API, something with a database. That was enough. Today, knowing React can't be enough. Do you know why? Because you could take the entire documentation of React and take the cheapest free model of any LLM chatbot, and you can feed the entire documentation into that chatbot. And at that point, that chatbot knows more React than you do because no one knows the entire documentation. No one. I even got people that wrote it. So you can't compete with that. But you can bring your business sense. You can bring the knowledge you have. You can bring your people front experience. You can bring so many things about yourself that in combination with your utilization of AI makes you remarkable. Great question. I am Lawrence D Codes on everything. So if you do social media and would like to interact, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, Lawrence Decodes. The professional place Lawrence Lockhart would be on is LinkedIn. So I definitely would encourage you to don't just hit connect because people do this. I've done this a lot of times. I'll say, oh yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Lawrence Lockhart. And I'll get like 50, 20, 50 connections and they'll never speak. Like not even say hello. Like, why are you connected if you don't want to talk? And then like a year from now, you want to get a job where I work and you want a referral, but we've never even said hello. So when you make a LinkedIn connection, say hi, do your little quick pitch, not a pitch, but just say hi, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. And then like, just, converse with them. Converse with them as if you were on the phone, but over a period of days to make them from just a random connection, which is still a cold lead. All of your LinkedIn connections are cold leads unless you have spoken. So speak to your connections. So when you need something, you don't feel weird about getting it. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you so much for this.
Lauren, it was more than remarkable.
Yay.
I know that the talk will be great, but I will say that we are mesmerized by you, by your story behind stories. And I feel myself very motivated. I'm absolutely sure that everybody else left and feel the same way.
Awesome. Thank you. So glad to be here. This is fun for me. It's better than work.
I think this is the most open and sincere conversation we had at our community. And one takeaway for me is to be remarkable and to be the purple cow.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And please follow Lawrence on social media, cheer him up, and support him as well. See you soon on our next events. Thank you, Lawrence.